Hello, and welcome to another Small Screen Star Wars. As always, I am Julian Mush. I'm joined by Rachel Wilkinson.
Hello.
And we are going to be talking about today The Bad Batch, Season 3, Episode 4, A Different Approach.
Just a little guy today.
Yeah, 27 minutes. It's a lot easier
Yeah.
to do the show prep when you don't have 3 times as much work to do.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit, probably a lot shorter than last week, which came in at just about 2 hours exactly, almost. This is going to be probably just short of an hour. So for those who are setting their watch for either going for a run or they got a gaming session on that they want to have a podcast on in the background, that's a favorite of mine.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But yeah.
See, I wouldn't be able to. I don't think I could focus on a game and listen to a podcast at the same time.
Well, you don't. Just like all things with humans, we're really bad at multitasking in general.
Yeah.
Which means that I'm neither really fully listening to the podcast or really fully playing the game.
Or you have to go back and re-listen.
I'm usually not. My performance in the game goes down.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like as long as it's like a single player, like I don't have to really worry about it thing. Then
that's
fine.
fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But if I try to play hockey, like NHL, and then listen to anything, I lose. I already lose a lot, but I lose much more. That game pisses me off more than any other. You want to see me break a controller? I have done that once.
You need to settle down.
But that was years ago. That was
okay.
That was in the PS3 days. Yeah.
I was like,
that was many moons ago.
I was like, grown men should not be breaking controllers when they lose in video games.
You're right. Luckily, I wasn't yet a grown man when I had done that. So I guess a little bit of housekeeping before we get started here. So obviously we are recording this. If you're listening to this live, if you're tuning in live, we are recording this on a Saturday afternoon. Typically this episode would be out already.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
But yeah, I mean, this life happens. Work was crazy this last week, and Rachel had other stuff going on. So we're just going to do a casual Saturday afternoon Star Wars conversation.
Yeah.
But we will try to stay as consistent on the Thursday night recordings with Friday sometime drops for the episode. However, not this coming week, but the week after I will be traveling for work, so we'll have to figure out another alternative. I should be back by Friday afternoon, so maybe we'll be able to record Friday afternoon like we tried to this week, but then fell back to Saturday.
Yeah.
So who knows?
We'll figure it out.
So just be aware of that. If you want to keep up with the schedule, if things are changing, there's 2 ways to do that. If you are a patron and you support the show over at patreon.com/TowerBabblecast, you are going to get updates in the Discord. You automatically get added to the Discord when you join the Patreon. There's a little bit of a fun chat in there anyway, but I always try to post updates in there for the patrons directly. We also will post on Twitter, especially, or X. I prefer to keep calling it Twitter, though. That's where I was keeping or dropping the updates as well as Discord this last week. So pay attention to that. That's at Tower Babblecast on Twitter, facebook.com/Tower Babblecast. And if you have questions, comments, concerns about the show, please write us an email. Head over to towerofbabblepodcast.com. You can find a contact us page there, or email us at towerbabblepodcast@gmail.com, which is another good way of reaching us. Okay, let's get into it. There's a little bit of Star Wars news I want to quickly touch on before we get going here.
Love Star Wars news.
It's bad news, though.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. So there was a canceled Star Wars game.
Oh.
We found out about this last week. So EA just laid off like 700 employees or something like that.
That's shitty.
Yeah, the layoffs in the tech industry continue to mount. There's thousands and thousands. There's probably over 10,000. It's probably closer to 20,000 employees over the last year and a bit that have been laid off in tech, including gaming. It's probably higher than that if you actually include both of those, but I only kind of pay attention to one or the other at a time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's rough out there. So if you're one of those people that got laid off, our condolences. That's really sad. I hope that you are able to get back on your feet.
Yeah.
It's not easy right now. So we understand the pain. However, let's just talk about the game quickly. So this was going to be a shooter that was coming from Respawn. Respawn, I think, is basically shuttered now, as far as I can tell. But it was going to be a Mandalorian-centered shooter where you played as a bounty hunter.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, so there's a couple things we learned. So, this is like the 15th Star Wars game that EA's canceled. So,
Right? Yeah.
good
I
riddance
feel like there's
on
been so many. I don't know. Maybe they can give. Are there other big gaming companies? Like maybe somebody else can pick it up.
There is others, and there will be more. I think they already. So EA had a 10-year exclusive license to Star Wars games.
Right.
When Disney bought Star Wars,
and then they've made how many games?
Like 4.
Oh, okay. I was like, and then they made what? None.
There's
games?
like very few. I mean, obviously, so Galaxy of Heroes, which is your favorite.
Oh, I do like that. Okay, but that's like a mobile game. I don't count mobile games.
So,
I do love Galaxy of Heroes, so that's a good game.
So there's that one, and then they've made the Jedi games. There's 2 of those, and they made 2 Battlefront games, and then
so they did those. Okay, so they did the Cal Kestis games. And,
yes.
Okay, fair enough.
And their third one of those, they said they'll still make.
Okay.
We'll see, but probably those made money for them. And they also made Star Wars Squadrons, which was like a fighter jet.
Oh, okay.
Where you played X-wings and TIE fighters and different stuff. It was actually really good.
Yeah.
Especially in VR. But they made very few, and they've actually probably canceled more than they actually made.
I feel like there's been a lot of canceled Star Wars games, but yeah.
So
that's interesting because they do. I know they make a good amount of money even just from that mobile game. Like they make
that's gonna
so much money out of that mobile game. I know there's people because you have guilds in that game, so you're playing with real people, and there's guys in like mine or my partner Adam's guild. They're called whales, and they just spend so much money on that game that to have all the characters at the second that they drop.
Actually.
Well, they're people that have money in general. We're not people who have that kind of disposable income.
We don't know if those are people that have actual money, though. To be honest.
That's true. I don't know. I've seen, because I'm in like Discord chats and stuff for mine, and I've seen photos of like where these guys like live or like vacations that they take with their families. I'm like, oh, you have like big American money. It's not my measly Canadian dollars over here. So I don't know. I feel like if you can like spend like up to $1,000 a month on a mobile game, you're like
obviously you're loaded. Or you're literally not buying groceries or something like that. I don't know. Either way, you're right. I like to keep the mobile games separate because it's just a whole different kind of
it is just different there. Yeah.
I will say that EA mentioned that they're just generally going away from, licensed games. They're going to try to make their own stuff, which, I guess they're saying that, working with Star Wars is expensive. The brand is expensive, all that stuff. Fair enough, maybe, but it's also like a ticket to print money if you get it right.
Well, yeah.
And
exactly.
It worries me, I guess, maybe not worries me, but it seems unlikely now that Battlefront 3, which would probably come from DICE, is ever going to happen. It's just such a shame. Every time a Battlefront 3 has almost happened, it was either canceled or never started. So, luckily, the previous 2 Battlefront games are coming to, we mentioned this last week, but they're coming to modern consoles. You can play those, but those are from the PS2 era. So, not really the same. So, it is what it is. Star Wars is, as a video game franchise, has been struggling for a while. Hopefully that, and obviously with exceptions, the Cal Kestis stuff and others, but generally speaking, Lucasfilm, I think Lucasfilm Games, which is a subdivision of theirs, which licenses out their stuff to these different studios, they are going to, or already have started reaching out to more and working with a wider variety of gaming studios and developers. So that should result in a kind of a boom for Star Wars games in the near future, but games take forever to make and are super expensive. So
that's true.
Anyway, a little bit of sad news.
I would be down for like a Nintendo Star Wars game.
Yeah, just like a Switch game.
Yeah, like I find Switch games really like easy and like good for me to play. They're not as complicated as other. I don't know.
Yeah, and the
I
online infrastructure is terrible, so you're just playing by yourself anyway.
I like by myself. I don't have the confidence to play online games because I don't want to get bullied.
Yeah, that's fair, and you don't really because you can't play online on Switch really very easily.
No,
you won't get bullied, and they're really sensitive to that. Nintendo is, so they'll protect you. I'm sure we'll. I mean, those Battlefront games are coming to Switch, so if you want to play that.
Yeah.
Also, Dark Forces 2, which is like an old DOS game. It's like a Doom clone or Doom type shooter. It was just remastered as well. It's also available for Switch.
Oh,
but it's a little. I can't really go back that far. Doom. Never mind Dune. Dune just Dune 2 just came
Yeah,
out on my
Doom.
mind. But Doom, like the original DOS game, is fine. I mean, it's a classic for a reason. But it's just
Who's the
too
main
old.
character in Doom?
It's just the Doom guy.
Oh,
That's
just the
what they
Doom
call him,
guy.
yeah.
Okay. I feel like I get Doom and Duke Nukem mixed up.
Oh yeah, Duke Nukem is just the that's Duke
Yeah.
Nukem.
Yeah.
Not
No,
the same.
fair enough.
The Doom guy kind of looks like Master Chief. He's wears like green armor, but
Okay.
yeah, it doesn't have like a personality so much.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, so let's get into this episode of The Bad Batch. So again, this is picking up after the 3-part premiere, back to the weekly release model, and we're dropping this 27-minute. This is pretty standard episode length for an episode of The Bad Batch, or really any of the animated stuff from Lucasfilm Animation. So directed by Brad Rao and Sal Ruiz, written by Dave Filoni and Jennifer Corbett. So we got a kind of a murderer's row here of really talented creators involved with this episode. In fact, I think we're going to see that carry on throughout this whole season. And really, it's been pretty much... I mean, they haven't been batting 1,000, we'll be honest. But they've been pretty good through certainly the beginning of the season and through the end of last season. And I think that'll continue. People are anticipating that we may get a announcement for the future of Lucasfilm Animation, what their next project is on Star Wars Day.
Okay. All right.
But, I mean, time will tell. We don't know. That's just rumors. I would like to be able to know what they're making, what they're planning on next.
Yeah.
What era they're planning on working in next. There's just a lot of options. I would like to see maybe something in the Rebels vein, but again with the more updated animation style.
Okay, yeah.
Which again, and then when I say in the Rebels vein, again something that follows a single group. Bad Batch does this too, but it's very plot heavy.
Right.
Whereas Rebels was very character driven. So I'd like to see again back to go something a bit more character driven.
Yeah.
But again, we'll see. Who knows?
It'd be cool to see something more like bad guy oriented.
Like
Like I don't know, more like old Sith stuff, or I don't know, even like bounty hunters or pirates, or I don't know, just something bad guys.
Bad guy, Star Wars bad guys.
Yeah, just bad guys.
Oh, okay. Well,
bad guy stories. That. Like when you kind of want, like when you're supposed to kind of root for the bad guys.
Well, I feel like maybe they could do some of that with like the Tales of the Jedi style.
Yeah, that's true.
Stuff.
That's true. Yeah, it'd just be cool to see some like old creepy Sith stuff.
Or maybe Tales of the Sith. That would be fun. Like,
yeah, that'd be
Tales
fun.
of the Jedi, and then you have a Tales of the Sith
series. Ooh, Tales of the Sith would be cool. I would watch that for sure.
Get to see like Darth Bane and all them.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into this episode itself. So again, this is called A Different Approach, which I think from the episode itself really kind of refers to, or seemingly refers to, Omega and Crosshair's disagreement about how they go about getting off this planet.
Yeah.
Right?
They both have to kind of exactly deal with the other's way of doing things.
Right, reach outside their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Right. The logline is stranded in dangerous territory. Omega and Crosshair must work together, which classic Star Wars logline essentially tells you nothing at all.
Yeah.
This actually, before we get into it, a couple things. Corrections from last week. I guess it was mentioned somewhere that Omega had spent approximately 125 days. Did we mention this last week, or maybe?
Yeah, I thought we were kind of counted how many days that she was on there. Yeah.
And we got around that number?
Yeah, I thought I said 125.
Okay.
I don't know. I could be wrong.
It was written down somewhere, and I don't remember that you said that, so that's my bad. So I'll just erase that. I kept referring to the planet as Tantus, but it's the planet is Wayland, and Tantus is the facility.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't have caught that. I thought the planet was Tantus.
Yeah, no, that's... I think they have... I don't think they've even said Wayland on
I feel like,
screen.
Wayland, because I would have immediately been like, that's funny. It's Smithers.
It's an Wayland Smithers.
Yeah.
It's an EU thing. Like Tantus was on the planet Wayland in the extended universe. So I think they kept that for this. But again, they haven't really. I don't think they've really said it out loud. But that is officially what the planet is.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then those like red-eyed bear things.
Yeah.
They're called dry axes.
Yes. Yeah. I saw that in the subtitles.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the wilds of this is from StarWars.com. In the wilds of Wayland. So there you go. It's written down there. The Dryaxes roam. These red-eyed creatures are among the predators that the Empire's trained Lurka hounds ward off. But their massive stature and razor-sharp claws make them even just one dry axe a formidable force. Doesn't really tell you much about them.
No.
I'm going to still call them space bears for the...
They remind me, I mean, not really, but kind of just like in D&D, there's like owl bears. They're like a big, it's basically a bear with like an owl
Yeah,
face.
I think, isn't in the D&D movie, don't we see one of those?
I think so, yeah. But they're like a pretty big, mean thing, and if you encounter them, like, yeah, they're whatever. They're hard to kill, and they're strong. And
so they're
whatever.
a bear with an owl face.
Yeah,
That's
I believe
silly.
so. Yeah, it's like a big bear with an owl face. Well, no, it's an owl bear. What do you expect? What else would it
I don't
look
know,
like?
It's just a funny, like, who would have come up with that combo? Okay.
Yeah.
What's your take on this episode as a whole?
Yeah, I find it kind of odd that it's just on its own. I figured it would. I guess it kind of makes sense because it just sort of sets up the, the reuniting kind of the Bad Batch with Crosshair. It gave me, again, kind of how we talked last week. I got a lot of what's the word? Jurassic Park vibes from this one again.
There's another Jurassic Park like full-on reference, I feel like.
Is there? Okay, because I was like immediately like, this looks like straight out of a Jurassic Park scene.
Maybe two even, actually, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of kind of good moments, interesting characters sort of in it. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things that I find not necessarily like plot holes, but just funny in it. Like, I'm like, okay, when did Omega learn how to hustle people?
Well, she learned on Sid's bar.
Did she? Okay, fair enough. Yeah, okay, I guess fair enough. But like, to be that good at it.
Remember, she got enough money to pay off their debts at one point.
Did she?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Maybe I'm just not remembering that. But I guess, yeah, she's like, I've done it before.
It was kind of like a minor subplot in season 2.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. No, I found like this episode like flowed relatively good and kind of, again, got us where we needed to be for the upcoming ones.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of drama, but a lot of action, so.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it. Before I get into my thoughts, let me read the IMDb user review, which we haven't done. We didn't do that last week, but we didn't have the time. Yeah. So this is from the user Jas Kajasla.
Okay.
Which is a bit of a mouthful.
Okay.
Anyway, titled, honestly, probably the weakest season 3 episode so far. 5 out of 10. Which, I'll hold my opinion for now. Okay, here's what they say. The episode is very similar to episode 2 in the way that it tackles a more mundane part of the story in a mundane way. The story could have further explored Omega and Crosshair and their dynamic, and whilst it did slightly, it could have explored it more, in my opinion, or at least create more intriguing conflicts. I think the issue lies with this episode in that it sort of shows off one of the entire show's main issues, which is the fact that it's pretty good at big plot beats and episodes, but struggles with things in between. Hopefully this and episode 2 are flukes and the rest of the season is better, but judging from the past 2 seasons, I'm not entirely sure. I think this is a way off, in my opinion. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I also thought episode 2 wasn't as strong.
Right.
But it was also sandwiched between 2 of some of the best episodes we've gotten on this series.
Right.
So you're automatically kind of like on the back foot on that one. It felt a little slow in that we're spending a lot of time like dealing with this kind of alternate clone thing that previous episode 2.
Right.
And the clone dynamic has been a part of the show, and they need to find a way to bring it in or continue to bring it in. So I'm not really that upset about it, to be honest. And then they introduced some fun action horror-y stuff that keeps it interesting. Ultimately, there's things that the show has to do that it can't really skip. So whether you're like, oh well, this reviewer says that like it handles big plot beats well, but doesn't handle the other things well. Well, sorry to break it to you, but you need to set up those big plot moments for them to be, interesting and worthwhile and feel earned. And if you don't do the work, you're not going to be able to. Those moments won't feel as satisfying.
Right.
So we had to spend an episode at least with Hunter and Wrecker where we saw their dynamic before. Because again, at the end of this episode, spoilers, and there's always spoilers for this as we get into it. But at the end of this episode, they're reunited.
Yes.
Right. So that by episode 4, that's already happened, which I actually think is a positive, but we'll get to that later.
No, I think so too.
We needed to see what their dynamic was without her. We saw that
Mhm.
Hunter was being hasty,
Yeah.
and putting themselves in danger. They were taking on jobs that I think they probably wouldn't necessarily want to, working for crime syndicates that they probably don't want to
Right.
to look for clues,
Yeah.
right? And that had to happen, because if we had spent no time with them and they just told us about it, I don't think we would have liked that. I think we would have liked to have seen those things.
No, yeah, I like seeing the crime syndicate stuff. It just shows kind of how desperate they were,
Yeah,
right? Like it's like they're working. Yeah,
as
they
they
have
said.
to pick up these crappy jobs to just find out little tidbits of information.
Right. And it also gave us insight into Dr. Hemlock
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
his approach to things, and how they treated those young clones and all those
Mhm.
things. So it gives there's value in that episode. So again,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
episode 2. So this episode 4, it picks up immediately after the events of episode 3. The moments, as soon as they jump out of into hyperspace, we pick right back up with them, and we spend the entire episode with Omega and Crosshair and Batcher. Again, we had to do this. You could argue that the show could have even spent more time,
Yeah.
trying to reunite them, put them through more of a ringer,
Mhm.
have maybe some close calls with Hemlock or whatever. But as we talked about, we think that it's probably for the best that they skipped through a lot of that kind of, maybe as people like to call it, filler stuff, to get us back to a reunited the Bad Batch.
Yeah,
right,
like,
which is the title. Of the
I
show.
didn't want to spend 6 or 8 episodes just waiting for them to do this whole reuniting and like getting back. We are playing still
We
a
don't
little
have
bit
the
of
time.
a
This is the
cat and
last
mouse
season.
game. Yeah, exactly. Like we don't need to spend a ton of time, like you said, on this chase to get
Right.
get them all back together. We want to see them all back together, see how that dynamic is going to play out for the rest of the season. Not necessarily have to spend half the season just waiting for them to even get to that point.
Right. And then again on top of that, so that's just on a core level, we have to show at least one episode of them escaping the Empire.
Of course,
Right?
yeah.
Secondly, we got to spend a bunch of time with Omega and Crosshair and their dynamic outside of the prison cell.
Right.
Right?
Yes, yeah.
They've had previous dynamics from before, very early on in season 1. They have a moment in season 2, or was at the end of season 1, I think. I don't remember. Whenever Camino's destroyed.
Right.
And I think that's season 2, the end of season 1. But they're, I think, a very fun combo of characters together.
Yeah.
They bounce off each other well. It makes for an interesting dynamic. So, just on a character level, we get to spend some time, and that's valuable in and of itself. Plus, we get to see more world building, which is, the state of the galaxy,
Mhm.
in 18 BBY, which is the year the show takes place, or this season's taking place, which is still really relatively early in the Imperial era, but
Right.
we get to see how quickly things have turned.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of value here. Never mind the fact that I think that the reunion scene itself was extremely effective, and
Yeah, I like that scene. It was good.
and they just nailed that.
Yeah.
So, from a plot perspective, it doesn't move us along much, but it actually does if you think about it, because it reunites them. By the end of the episode, they're back together. So that's pretty big.
Yeah, and I feel like it's not like it was a slow, dragging episode. There's a lot of fun action. There's a lot of cool scenes.
Tension is
and
high. I just
yeah,
think it's
good
great.
tensions. It was
Yeah.
like I really enjoyed it. I feel like I wasn't bored and just being like, oh, that was a boring episode. Nothing happened. Like a lot actually kind of happened.
Yeah,
so
in stark contrast to the most recent episode of the Halo series, which is in season 2 now.
Mm-hmm.
It got derided really hard for its season 1, which is pretty bad, and I agree with that. And now season 2 made some strides to improve. It's still kind of stumbling. It has a really big episode in episode 3 where, spoilers for Halo, but I think everyone who knows Halo knows that Reach as a planet falls to the Covenant. They do that episode. It's really exciting and fun, and then they follow it up with, in my opinion, something pretty slow and tough to get behind, in my opinion. I think there's others that probably do. I felt like they were stumbling in that episode, and this is an example of, hey, we had this really action-packed finale of episode 3. Now we're gonna kind of take a breath, but even then, again, I said the tension in this episode is high, so I think it's pretty good. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'd probably give it a 7.5.
Yeah.
But 5 is way too low.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I would agree.
Kajasla. All right, let's get into the recap. Okay, so we start in hyperspace, as I mentioned, right after the events of episode 3, and Omega and Crosshair are working feverishly to make the ship function before dropping out of hyperspace. Omega wants to try to contact Hunter. The comms are down. Crosshair, always the soldier, is that that's not the primary mission right now. We need to get the ship functioning so we can land the ship. They end up dropping out of hyperspace over a rocky planet. We found out later that's called Lao. They crash land on the planet. Crosshair knows they have no time to repair the ship, and Omega insists that they at least try to get the nav computer online to extract the coordinates for Wayland to rescue the remaining prisoners. Omega, obviously, again, there's a lot of kind of these moments here, several of them, where we get insight into Omega's. In fact, this is, it's pretty consistent, I would say, over the series.
Of
she
course,
never wants to leave anyone behind.
No.
Right?
And Crosshair is pretty much the opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm off there now. We're good. Like,
well, and he is obviously going through an arc, right, where he's like, if I had the chance, I would leave you. I wouldn't think twice about leaving you. But obviously, he's now thinking twice about lots of things.
Of course, yeah.
So anyway, she wants to, it's smart of her to remember that it's handy to have those coordinates. They don't get them, so they're gonna have to figure that out another way. And B, Crosshair is smart enough to know that they don't have time to mess around. They need to get away from that ship as fast as possible,
right, and
figure out a way off the planet. So right away, I think the episode starts by first it starts in media res, and it's exciting. It's like, okay, alarms are blaring. We're in the middle of action. We crash land on the planet, and then right away they establish the stakes, and the tension is high. So I think that the start of this episode is very strong. I guess Crosshair had spotted a spaceport not far away. So he ultimately wins the argument about what they do here. They need to leave. And they head for the spaceport nearby, leaving the crash ship behind. There's nothing else they can do. As I mentioned, I think this is a thrilling sequence from start to end here. Any thoughts on this opening section?
No, not really. I mean, it's like you said, it is exciting. It's nice that we're doing. I don't know. I like a good crash landing.
Yeah, who doesn't? Right?
It's just you come out of hyperspace. It's immediate. Tensions are high, and I love a good Star Wars crash landing on a
to pop out of hyperspace
planet.
Right in front of a planet, though.
I mean, that is true. But your nav computers would probably kind of tell you that, wouldn't they?
I don't know. It seemed like everything was breaking at that moment.
Yeah, that's fair. And it's always like a habited planet for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, this is just Star Wars stuff. It's fine. And you can breathe and everything.
Whatever.
The gravity's always the same. It's listen, don't
Hey,
think
it
about
looked
that.
cold, so
yeah, it was cold.
You
but
could see their
snowy,
breath.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is like, it's not just like a pure ice planet. You can have a distinction between an ice planet, a rocky planet. You can have a cold rocky planet.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and again, actually quite similar to the planet they go to in Halo in the season 2 episode from this last Thursday.
Okay.
Which usually comes out after we record, so I don't have an opportunity to talk about it. But anyway,
I don't know anything about Halo other than the first time I tried to play it, I got bullied. So.
Well, yeah, that'll happen.
It was the early 2000s too, so like people were a lot meaner in online gamers
I think
back
they're
then.
Still quite mean.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. That's not.
I was getting bullied by 10-year-olds back then, so it was.
That's still happening.
Yeah.
It's really just a parenting problem.
Yeah, that's fair.
We do a quick cut back to Tantus on Wayland, and Hemlock is questioning Nala Se, who is now in custody, about how Omega escaped exactly.
Mm-hmm.
He has a hunch that she was involved. I mean, he's right, but he's not. He can't overplay his hand because he has no proof necessarily yet, although I'm sure he'll find it. And even if he did, like, it doesn't matter. Technically, now he just cares about getting Omega back for the scientific purposes.
I do like how confident he is about getting her back. Like, to him, there's just no, I don't know. There's no question that they're just going to get her back. He's like, when we get her back.
I think he's kind of empowered by that line from Palpatine last week.
Right, like no matter, like he has the full force of the Empire behind him. Yeah,
it's like, okay, well, how many Star Destroyers do you need? 15? 20? How many? 30? Keep going.
To find one kid.
Right. How many platoons, squadrons, walkers, whatever. It sounds like he has whatever he needs.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I would be interested, like, if he does get a lot of resources, like, what are the, like, in-between equipment stuff like? Because we see the in-between helmets for the Stormtroopers, which are pretty cool.
right,
But,
yeah.
like, what is, like, the precursor to the AT-AT? Is it really just the Republic version? Or is there something in between?
I mean, this soon, you feel like it would probably just be, like, using some of the Republic stuff
Yeah,
still.
I mean, they're still using V-Wings and stuff. And
Yeah.
So, I mean...
I don't know. You could have, like... Even if he has all these resources, right? He still needs
Galaxy's pretty big.
Info. Yeah. Like your main resource that you need is information. So I don't know. You can have 15 Star Destroyers, but what are you going to do if you don't know where she is?
I guess like if their plan is like, I think this is what the tension is going to be going forward. Is Omega is going to want to go back and rescue everyone else from
of course
Tantus. The Bad Batch is going to be like, no. We want to go live on that
island,
Grease.
Yeah, by ourselves,
right, and not talk to anybody because the more people we talk to, the more people know that we're here, or whatever, right? We do know that Rex has been hinted at. We know he'll be in this season. I'm sure we'll see Echo soon, but
because Echo's with Rex, right?
Yes, yeah. So, and we know that their mission is to, they're trying to save clones, take on the Empire, et cetera.
Right.
There's going to be some joining of those plots together.
Of course.
I would like to pick up with some of the stuff we dealt with on what's the Twi'lek planet called again?
I don't know what their planet
starts with an R.
Oh, Ryloth.
Ryloth, right? And Captain
Syndulla?
Howler.
Oh.
Hauser,
yes,
right.
Yes.
And like that whole situation and how that's like what's going on there. I mean, we have the interest. The TK troopers are everywhere now,
right?
So what is going on? We saw the resolution of the clone bill last year. So where does that all stand? I feel like it's still gonna have to play in. We don't have that much time.
No,
but from a plot perspective, the show could be like, no, we did it. We escaped and we're done. Right? If they really wanted to, but we still have the whole season to go. So
yeah, yeah, and I mean, you think that so like Omega wanting to go back would kind of align with what Rex and Echo were doing in terms of like saving clones and, especially because it's like they're still using clones. They're still doing testing on them. Like we gotta go back and save them because of all this shady stuff the Empire is doing. Right. So I can see that their stories would kind of align here. But
hey, by the way, speaking of shady stuff, one of the things that I heard about was as a theory as what's in the vault, because we never see what Palpatine and them are looking at. You're like, well, maybe it's a clone of Palpatine, but it seems unlikely,
right?
Because you wouldn't want to have I don't feel like Palpatine would trust his clones anywhere but like in his own direct control.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
So
fair enough.
People and like we know that they were dropping blood into like Omega's blood or whatever. So there's like it's complicated, but I think the idea is that potentially maybe there's like 4 or 5 of those like cylinders or whatever, clone tubes. We don't know what those are.
Yeah.
In the vault, that those are actually Jedi.
Didn't we say that before?
We say that? Oh man, we recorded for 2 hours. There was a lot.
No, because I remember saying before we were like, oh, maybe it's Vader's blood, and I was like, oh, well, maybe it's like captured Jedi's blood.
Okay, see, that's my bad. I'm just not giving you credit for all your good ideas.
I'm pretty sure we said something like that.
We talked about Vader's blood as a concept.
Because remember we talked about how we saw what was it in is it in The Mandalorian or when we see the my brain where they have.
I'm pretty sure that's in Obi-Wan.
In Obi-Wan, yeah, where we were talking about when we see like the captured. There's like the little Jedi boy with the helmet on, like, and they're all suspended
Jedis or something. It's it's weird.
Because I'm like, they've just done this Jedi purge. I'm like, I'm sure they would have kept
Castle
some.
Inquisitorius. Yeah, I think the Fortress Inquisitorius. Maybe I think that's anyway. You're right. I think that is a possibility.
I don't know if we necessarily said they had Jedi like back in that vault, but we were talking about like, oh, maybe they're using Vader's blood, maybe they're using Palpatine's, maybe they're using other Jedi.
But again, it's one of those things where I don't think Palpatine wouldn't trust anybody with blood.
No, probably not.
And so, I think it could be how what's her name comes back into the series, the two lightsaber person we talked about last week who appeared in the trailer.
Asajj.
Asajj. Maybe she's captured there and they're using her blood. It's possible.
Could be. Yeah.
Anyway, just something I wanted to mention. Okay, so back on Lao. Actually, before we finish that, so they're talking about how he finds it suspicious Omega was able to get off the base, and also how it's weird how none of the tests he ran on Omega's blood
Right,
returned any
yeah. Like
results.
straight up called her out.
Right.
Yeah. It's
But-
like, how come when you ran it, it didn't work, but then as soon as what's her name runs it, it comes back.
Right. And I think that's a fair,
Mhm.
assumption, but she has a good scientific response, which is that false positives are, always a possibility.
Yeah,
And it's just
yeah.
it's just a aberration.
Yes.
Right. So he's willing to test that theory. He's basically saying, once we get Omega back,
Mhm.
and we run this test again, we'll see if that proves true. So
Right.
basically, Nala Se's fate is in the hands of Omega staying free.
Yeah, 100%. He's like, okay, well, we'll see. And
Right.
if you're lying, she's
Well, you know-
R.I.P.
Yeah, but like they needed her for the for the clone, like the research, though, right? Don't they still need her
Yes.
for that?
Well, I don't know. They've got I keep forgetting her name.
Doctor something.
E. Her name starts with an E. They
Yeah.
have her now, but yeah.
Emery.
I feel like they probably do still need her, like I want to
Mhm.
say, but yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see. Because I guess they killed all the other Kaminoans. I don't know if there's that many left.
There's
but
very few. She might be
Yeah.
the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also that.
there's the one in the Senate. Isn't
There's
there?
one in the Senate. There's like there's
She's
the
like
one
kinda
that's
like
like
a bad
hiding.
guy.
Yeah, she's like
yeah,
hiding in plain sight or whatever.
yeah.
Okay, so back on Lao, and this is how StarWars.com describes it. Like many worlds in the Age of the Empire, the spaceport on the largely desolate planet of Lao is bustling with Imperial agents on the lookout for any signs of unrest. With an unforgiving terrain of jagged cliffs and frigid temperatures, it's not among the most welcoming of places, which is true.
Yeah.
It makes for a very good setting for an episode like this, which feels a lot like the intro sequence to Solo in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Which also has a good atmosphere,
Mhm.
So yeah. Okay. They reach town, and in town, the trio of Omega, Crosshair, and Batcher survey the situation. There's a heavy Imperial presence, which Crosshair clocks as kind of a standard Imperial patrol
Right.
protocol.
Yeah.
He obviously knows more about that because he was working with the Empire for a short time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they're probably using a lot of the similar strategies that they used under the Republic.
Of course, yeah.
But again, this is what I was talking about. The world building earlier, we get this sense that this is a desolate planet, but there is a pretty heavy, Imperial presence here, which mirrors what we see on places like Tatooine and other places where you really feel the boot of the Empire.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And again, this is very early still in this whole transition process. Omega wants to call for help, but to Hunter, but Crosshair shuts her down, knowing that they're monitoring long-range comms. This is handy for plot reasons.
Yeah.
But also realistic, right?
Although, very realistic.
If you think about it, they already have coded messages, and in fact, Crosshair sent a coded message last season.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But then they knew he sent a coded message. Though,
yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
They decide they need to find a change of clothes, as their prison uniforms will draw too much attention.
Mm-hmm.
We get some quick shots of the village as Omega steals some clothes in a small bag. Their outfits are beginning to look much more like the original trilogy style outfits now. Kind of bridging the eras a little bit,
Yeah.
Which one was your favorite? Did you like hers or his better?
I kind of liked his. I don't know. I liked it because hers, I don't know, it just seemed...
She's got a funny hat.
Yeah, she's got a hat on. I liked that his whole kind of face was covered. And I don't know. Right. I like a good, different looking like mask or helmet or whatever in Star Wars.
Yeah. Same. Although I do like the flaps on the side of her hat. It's a good flappy hat.
Yeah. Ear flaps.
Yeah.
Makes sense in a colder climate. We have hats like that up here in Canada.
Yeah, well, and they also use hats like that on Hoth.
Yeah.
So they quickly change plans and head to the spaceport to sneak aboard a shuttle leaving the planet. Unfortunately, it's very heavily guarded, like very heavily guarded.
Yeah.
There's like 30 troopers just standing around.
Yeah.
And, too heavily guarded for Crosshair, although he said that he could take out half of them before they even know what's happening, which is a very funny sequence.
Yeah.
Despite his insistence, they try another way. Omega has a different, less violent idea. She tries bribing the attendant. Luckily, she's very willing to take a bribe.
Yeah, I really like that exchange because
Yes.
you're not too sure how it's gonna go at
Right.
first. She's like, "Oh, are you trying to bribe me? Because I'm open to that."
I feel like there's a specific. Yeah.
I liked it. I was like, "Oh, I like a good, sly."
There's a specific
bribe.
tone that one uses to insinuate
Yeah,
a bribe,
yeah.
right? It's like, well, there's always funny. It's like, well, what does Franklin think about that? Or whatever. And like, they just use that, and we've seen it in Star Wars before.
Of
and
course,
and
yeah.
they use it again in Solo, and we see it here, and it is fun, right? It's
Mhm.
kind of like the playing coy thing. It's
Yeah.
like, are you insinuating I should take a bribe? And she's
Mhm.
like, if that's what you want to call it. And he's like, well, I do want to take a
Yeah,
bribe.
you're like, I'm for it. Yeah.
And by the way, this is again more world building because what we're seeing is corruption
Of course, yeah.
seeping into all parts of society, and corruption happens when there's no oversight, or worse, there is no accountability.
Right.
So
yeah.
these imperial officers have a strict set of rules that the buck stops at them. So if they can be breaking the law and there's nobody
Yeah.
to hold them accountable, there's no reason anyone else wouldn't break the law.
Of course.
Because they're being thrown in jail for no reason already. You might as well take your cut where you can get it.
Yeah.
So,
especially when things are under more of that control, right? And they're being like the regular people are kind of being stomped on.
right.
They're just like, well, whatever. I'm going to take bribes then because I need
Right.
money
I'm
to
not getting
survive.
paid. I'm
and...
working extra hours. I'm not getting extra pay.
Yeah.
And all these other things. And again, the Imperials set the example. They are corrupt, and therefore corruption.
Well, we see so much corruption in this episode.
Well, I know, and so
it's wild.
Exactly. So it's like
yeah.
you set this tone of corruption, and corruption then seeps into everything.
Yeah.
Right. So, and corruption is essentially impossible to stomp out entirely.
Of course.
But there's a lot of things that you can do to prevent it and then the best thing you can do is when it's identified, make an example out of these people or out of those people who are in those positions and abusing them.
Right.
But again, there's no accountability for Imperial agents.
No.
So, or
no.
not, at least not for corruption.
No.
for other things. So anyway, she's open to taking a bribe, though the price is quite steep. She's saying that it's 15,000 credits per person.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, Batcher travels for free.
Yeah. Yeah, not charging for the round. Yeah.
And again, this always brings me back to this, how much are credits worth? What are we supposed to understand? Is this $15,000? Are we supposed to think of that as 30,000 American dollars to get off world? It doesn't seem unreasonable, but also, could you get $30,000 from gambling in a small town bar in an afternoon? Or is it more like $300?
Yeah, it's hard to know
$3,000.
what things cost in Star Wars because I just feel like there's so many different. Yeah, is a ship 30,000 credits or
how much is an apple, for instance?
That's what I mean. That we need kind of a base. I don't know. I feel like sometimes it's 6 credits for a drink or something. You know, but I don't know. It's so hard to kind of figure that out.
So this is it very
I was
much
like,
annoys
Google
me.
it.
It annoys me. I don't know if there's how much.
What's the exchange rate of credits in Star
much
Wars? Someone's
it
got to have figured it out by now.
Imperial credit worth in Star Wars.
Yeah.
So looking at this and found that blah, 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 this is Quora. So I was looking into this and found that Ben Chukrin has a great answer to this. Quora users answered to how much 1 credit would be worth in Star Wars universe if it could be exchanged for US dollars. And according to his answer, 1 Imperial credit is worth about $4 US.
Okay.
So it's actually worse than I thought.
Yeah, way worse.
So it's 4 times. That's $120,000 for
a lot.
Passage off world.
That's a big gambling game that she's winning. It's like World Series of Poker.
Well, and this one has
money.
this. Okay, so this is another one. This one's from Travel Money. $1 US would buy you around 1.4 galactic credits, but I'm not getting I'm not really getting a lot of consistent answers here.
Yeah, it's you kind of need to see what things have cost, but it just depends on what planet you're on, how corrupt it is, how much someone's taking from you. Because what is it that they offer Han in Star Wars to take Luke? And isn't it 15 or 20,000 credits
It might be.
It's something like that. It's like, oh, because
So maybe they use it as the
Obi-Wan's like,
baseline.
oh, I'll give you like 15 now, and you'll get another 5 at the end.
Right,
for
and it's like, hey,
20.
and your speeder can, you sell your speeder, and we can get
Yeah,
whatever.
because I remember Luke says something like, we could buy our own ship for that much money,
Right.
and it's like, well, you're not spending. It's not about. What? There's that line. It's like you're not paying for the ship. It's paying to be quiet.
How
It's
much
something like 20.
17,000
17,
credits.
yeah.
So-
So, and I remember Luke saying you could buy a whole ship for that much. But
Yeah, but he doesn't know anything. He's
He
a,
doesn't
he's a
know
small town
anything.
farmer.
I'm just saying, it's
Anyway, this is not the first time this has come up, and it's like one of those things where I'm usually the one saying, don't worry about it. Don't think about it too much. But like,
yeah,
money is like, understanding the economy is pretty important to understanding like what people value, right? Like,
of course.
if $15,000 is not a lot of money, or if credits is not a lot of money, that's important. And if it's a ton of money, that's important. Or if it's like somewhere in between, that's also important. So
Yeah.
like, anyway, it sounds like it's a lot. They certainly seem to think it's a lot.
Yeah.
So, they then kind of disappointed. They try to think of a plan for try to find 30,000 credits. And she's basically insisting like, listen, I just don't want to hurt anyone. She reiterates that here. Especially innocent people.
Mhm.
Although you could argue that an Imperial agent isn't necessarily innocent, but I don't think she has any problem shooting them. So
No.
they quickly spot a bar/cantina nearby, which gives Omega an idea. Meanwhile, a street urchin kid watches them shadily.
Shadily, yeah.
Shadily.
I definitely thought he was gonna rob them.
100%.
Yeah, I was like,
And
that kid's gonna rob
And I'm
them.
not convinced he didn't help the Imperials rip them off.
Okay, yeah, fair
So,
enough. Or
was-
the Imperials were like, make sure you tell those people we stole their dog. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
And you can make some cash off of it.
mm-hmm.
A lot. You want some information? I want $10,000.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, kid.
Yeah. Get out of here. Okay, so inside the cantina, Omega and Crosshair scope out the gambling situation. Her plan is to hustle the patrons to earn a quick cash, similar to how she did on Ord Mantell at Sid's bar. So, this is from the StarWars.com kind of like inside the episode thing, or as some call it, a temporary requisition of funds.
Mm-hmm.
The strategic thinking that won over Sid on Ord Mantell is back on display as Omega enraptures a cantina in a game of ballons against a confident Trandoshan. But going toe-to-toe with an Imperial captain, that takes some real courage.
Mm-hmm. So is she cheating? Is that what we're thinking?
Well,
Like,
no. The thinking is that she's force sensitive,
okay,
So she
that
can
makes
see the
sense.
future.
So she okay,
or at least
interesting.
sense the future.
Okay, so yeah, she can kind of read.
Mhm.
Yeah, or like okay, I get it. She's
Right.
like sensing their.
Why is she so good at
Mhm.
these games otherwise?
Yeah,
right?
that makes sense.
Why is her blood so valuable?
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
it seems odd, like people have been hinting at this since like the first episode when she's like
Right.
talking to Crosshair and it's like, I can see that, I can feel that you're angry or whatever she says.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, kids are intuitive, so that might just be that's just how she is. She's just an intuitive person or empathic person.
Right.
But doesn't really explain
No.
never losing at gambling.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Fair
enough. Yeah.
seems likely. How that all plays together at this point is kind of what makes it interesting. I think from my
Right.
perspective, she's all but confirmed that she's force sensitive. What I don't need is like another Sabine situation where it's just like she's able to like harness it and become super strong with the force
Right.
within this series. But if she survives and is brought back later into Star Wars, and we're able to see her, learn Jedi skills, sure, I'd be open to that maybe. But again, I don't necessarily need that for this to work.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think of her as being force sensitive?
I definitely think that's. Yeah. I mean, it's been alluded to so many times already now that it just makes sense, especially with her blood and everything. That's basically just what we're building up to is how she's force sensitive, why, and what is going to happen with it, right? So.
Exactly. Okay, so they don't have anything to bet. So this is a problem. If you're going to gamble, you kind of need something to bet. But she's betting that they won't lose, so it won't be a problem.
Yeah.
And I love her. It's like, well, and what if you lose? It's like, well, then we'll be in bigger trouble than we are now.
Yeah. Because I love how Crosshair says, like, well, we don't have anything to bet. And like, they don't know that. And it's like, well, don't you have to start somewhere?
Yeah,
like, don't you have to
like,
ante or
don't
however?
You have to like put in some kind of like, hey, I have cash here.
Yeah, that's usually how poker works. But I guess maybe with this,
maybe it's blind. I don't know.
It could be. Yeah, it's like, oh, we're gonna play this card game. It's worth, if I win, I get this much from you, right? So if she's not worried about losing, then she never has to put money in.
You got to think, if you're trying to get to 30,000, you got to be playing like $5,000 hands.
Easy, yeah.
You know. Anyway.
Shady bars, not room,
yeah,
not backroom games,
alley,
but
yeah.
you know, it's
Anyway, it works out. So she spots a Trandoshan on a hot streak and uses her most innocent sounding voice to ask if she can give it a try.
Yeah.
It's funny. Hey,
yeah.
can I try?
Just a trial.
This will be easy.
Yeah.
Classic hustle stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, aren't we in a bar? How'd you get in here?
Yeah. Aren't you 12?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess she's like, what? Again, we talked about this last week.
I don't know.
Got like
14. Yeah, maybe.
But like when you see her up against Crosshair, she still looks very small.
Yeah,
so.
she looks like a kid. They think like he's her dad. So yeah.
So Crosshair looks on from the booth. He's kind of like the backup, right? Cut to some time later, and Omega is now, she's the one on the hot streak. She convinces her Trandoshan to play another round. She's like, well, my luck has to run out sometime. He's like, you are right about that.
Yeah.
And so they keep playing, and they're playing a game called Balans, as I mentioned before, and this is how Balans is described on StarWars.com. Gambling may be illegal in much of the Galactic Empire, but on the world of Lao, even the local officers enjoy a friendly game of Balans. With a deck stacked with special cards that can deflect or bluff, steal or call a truce, destroy or block, collecting 3 Eastern stars is a sure path to victory. It doesn't really describe anything.
No.
But I guess it looks like it's more like a Magic the Gathering style game.
Yeah, I was gonna say yeah, exactly, like Magic or Pokemon or
it's
like where
less
cards.
Like poker. I feel like
it's like
that's different.
Fighting and blocking and different cards are worth different points, kind of thing. Yeah.
Anyway, at that moment, as she's kind of like getting over the dollar amount of hump, the credits that she needs, an Imperial Captain Man, walks in with a trooper escort. He's surprised to see businesses booming, which the droid bartender attributes to Omega's gambling performance that she's brought in. She's kind of gathered a crowd. Captain Man, and by the way, so at this point in the episode, again, the tension feels high for me. They've already escaped the crashed ship. Sure, they've got a disguise now, but that's only going to get them so far.
Mm-hmm.
They can't charge into the spaceport. Too many troopers there, so they're falling back to a backup plan. This plan is much more, challenging to execute, one might say, or at least not necessarily, because storming the spaceport would be hard too. But
it's just more subtle.
Yeah. But by doing this, it draws attention to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like the tension was high already, but as soon as Man walks in, and he's got the trench coat, things take I feel like the tension really is heightened even further for me.
Right.
And so I'm on the edge of my seat here. Again, he's kind of just taking in the scene, but he's running some type of protection racket, right? So more corruption. So as he implies that they have, a standing agreement that he takes a cut of the profits.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And this is how StarWars.com describes Captain Man. Captain Man's fealty to the Empire is only surpassed by his loyalty to himself. Mm-hmm. With slicked back hair and an oily voice, Man is given to working both sides of the law to line his own pockets with credits. After participating in a hand of credits, he'll make sure to collect the hefty fines warranted for illegal gambling.
I like that oily voice. That's a very good voice. So is it Scottish? Is that kind of the accent that they're giving him? It seems like
that's what's going on this planet. It's like a Scottish.
Yeah, I was like, I can't. Sometimes with Scottish accents, they're very hard for me to not hear fat bastard from. Especially with him, I don't know why. That's like all I could hear certain times that he talked, and I couldn't take him as seriously. He sounded
familiar, but looking into it. So the actor's name is Harry Lloyd, and I don't recognize him from anything. It seems like he's a long time kind of working actor. Oh, he plays Viserys Targaryen in Game of Thrones, 6 episodes. Doesn't look familiar. Oh, I guess maybe a little bit.
Wait, like
There's a lot of Viseryses in Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay. I was like, as in like her brother,
Like
Daenerys' brother. Is that her brother's name? I can't remember. Yeah.
But it could be a different one.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to remember now. Let's see. Which 6 episodes is he in? Because I don't think his brother lives that long.
No, he doesn't. I was like, he's not really in that many.
Oh no, he's in season 1, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, 6, and the unaired original pilot. So yeah, he does play his brother.
Yeah, so the blonde, the shitty one. Yeah.
Exactly.
The shitty blonde guy.
I thought he died earlier than episode 6, but I guess not.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, he's doing a very different performance here.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Solid actor. Mm-hmm. I think a very affecting performance. It's exactly what you needed for this role. So great casting. Yeah, I just think he's a really like fun.
Yeah.
Greasy again.
Yeah, greasy. Yeah.
Character. So
yeah, he plays a good bad guy.
Indeed. A whiny little.
Yeah.
Anyway, Omega wins again against the Trandoshan and tries to leave, but the Captain Man wants to take on Omega himself, and he insists.
Of course. See, I thought he was going to kind of know right away who she was, but I guess they haven't really put out
it's too fast,
a bulletin yet, because that's what they're going to do.
Right.
It's like her face is going to be plastered everywhere.
Exactly. Meanwhile, an Imperial patrol spots the downed transport. So they hadn't spotted the transport yet. That just happens. And Omega and Crosshair, that's the ship they arrived in. It's still smoking, so it's not surprising necessarily that they found it. But that information is going to get back to Man pretty quick.
Of course, yeah.
Back inside the bar, Captain Man and Omega are in the midst of a heated, high-stakes game. Batcher, sensing the stress, starts to growl. I love this, your hound doesn't really like me much.
Yeah.
Right? And then the Man insists that Batcher is a distraction.
Yeah.
It should be taken outside. How do you, what do you think, that he's a distraction to him, or he thinks it's a distraction for her?
I think it's just an excuse to get Batcher outside. I don't know if he always had this plan to steal Batcher or not, but I don't know. I just feel like he wants it away, and also probably just because it's also a form of protection for her too.
Sure.
So he's like, I'm just going to get rid of your protection so that you're a little bit more vulnerable, because he's going to do some shady stuff right away. So he doesn't want her to be like, yeah, well, my dog's going to eat your face if you try and take my money.
I also took it a little bit as Crosshair keeps saying that you have to leave behind all these things, and she refuses to ever leave anything behind.
Right.
And she keeps getting all these people telling her that she needs to look up for herself first. But that's and so that's another one of felt like he was giving her advice, just look up for yourself. Don't worry about this stupid dog.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, it's not clear to me. You're right. If they planned it, it's possible that this was organized by the street kid earlier on with them. Hey, if the dog gets outside, then I can, we can steal it for you. And it does seem like stealing animals seems to be a part of his racket.
Right.
There's a lot of animals.
There's so many that he has, but.
So, anyway, Crosshair takes her outside, and Man makes a strong play. The game continues, giving him a moment to gloat. But Omega comes back with a, quote, 3 Eastern stars, winning the game to everyone's surprise. Very Casino Royale moment for me.
Yeah.
And so she insists on the 30,000 credits that were being gambled, which she concedes surprisingly easily, which you always have to take with a grain of salt.
You always know it's a bad
red
thing.
flag.
Yeah.
As Omega makes a play to leave, Man is notified of the crashed shuttle at that same moment. They're about to get out scot-free when Man reminds them that they need to pay a fine.
Yeah, for gambling.
For gambling, because it's illegal.
I love it. I don't know. I love a shady racket like this where it's he's also gambling, but he's like, oh, actually, that you have to pay me a fine.
Well, yeah, that's how he
can arrest you.
The whole thing
such
is
shady.
So,
yeah, you're like, oh man, you suck.
Well, Crosshair's reaction is like, what?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
But again, I think this is a good thing why the hound isn't there too.
Right.
Because he knew he was going to do this. But I mean, he only takes 10,000 back. He could have been like, oh, the fine's 30,000 credits.
Right. I mean, yeah. I think. So the thing is, when you're in that position, you can't push it too far.
No,
at least
that's
not
true.
At the same time, because You need to be able to maintain power.
Yeah. In
right?
a whole bar of people, they'd be like, whoa, okay, like that's a
Yeah.
bit much. Yeah.
Well, and maybe they wouldn't, but they would notice that, like, hey,
yeah.
if this ever happens again, I know I'm just going to get hustled anyway, so
Yeah.
I might as well
exactly.
just concede and just end it there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you need to be able to, like, maintain this at least image of some type of fairness.
Right.
Again, even though the corruption is obvious, you can't state it out loud.
No.
Right?
No.
And again, this is what encourages other people to take bribes and all that other stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
So they pay the 10,000 credits reluctantly, and then they head outside, and they notice that the hound is missing. So but before, I guess they did have 35,000 credits left. So they had 45,000. They give 10,000 back. They have 35,000.
Right.
As she says, enough to get on the ship with a little extra.
Mm-hmm.
So, they notice that the hound is gone, that Batcher's missing. The street urchin kid is back, looking for a payout in exchange for information.
Yeah.
And at first he says he wants 10,000 credits, and Crosshair's like, I'm getting a little tired of this.
Yeah, he's like, absolutely not.
Yeah, but he settles for 5,000, which is still quite a lot. I would have kept pushing. I think he would have taken less. To be honest, he didn't have a lot of leverage.
No.
Anyway, he says that man took Batcher to the cargo docks. This results in a disagreement. There's another disagreement between Crosshair and Omega. She won't abandon Batcher, despite Crosshair urging her to look out for herself or for themselves. Right? She throws the money at him, says, "You figure it out. I'll find another way."
Right.
And you got to respect her standing by her scruples here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Given the situation, the smart decision probably would be to leave Batcher, but
right.
you can't.
You
can't.
can't.
Do it.
No, you can't. She's too. Yeah, she just wouldn't. That's just not in her. It's not in her character.
That's right.
To leave anyone behind ever. So
right. And by the way, this has put them in danger many times.
Yes.
Her insistence that they
yes.
that they save whoever or go back for whatever has put them in danger a lot.
That's true.
Which challenges her kind of concept to begin with, but ultimately, like, she ends up being right.
Yes. Yeah.
And it kind of like gives not just Crosshair a new perspective, but all of the Bad Batch, because they've all kind of gone through it at different times.
Right.
This is just his chance to learn these lessons from Omega.
Yeah.
Right. Because the rest of them already had the chance to learn them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And of course you can see that he's like, he wants to just go, but he can't bring himself to do it. Right. And this, I think, by the way, comes back to his moment of like enlightenment last season, when he kills that Imperial officer who had no respect or care for human life.
Yes.
And that was his kind of like turn moment, and he struggled with those, and I think he still sees himself as a soldier, despite kind of his now his shaky hands and some of those things.
Right.
But yeah, he's growing as a person. He's seeing a kind of a different approach to life. Anyway, they do separate here, but it doesn't last very long. So they get to the cargo facility. We get an establishing shot of the facility. It looks a lot like like a built up version of the one we saw in the first season when we were with Cut, and they're trying to get him off the planet.
Yeah, yeah.
When they're handing out train codes for the first time.
Yes, yeah.
It's just like that, but bigger, or at least more built up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of showing again that over time the Imperial presence is becoming more fortified.
Right.
You get to see some cool, like a crane, kind of these the Imperial ship is kind of a cool design. All of it. But again, as we said earlier, it seems to have a disproportionate amount of animals in storage. Yeah,
like it looked like a lot. And I mean, again, this is one of those things where anytime you see a bunch of bad guys and this is where I was getting a lot
with
more of the
animals in cages.
Yeah, dangerous animals in cages that they keep shocking with like shock prod staffs. And this is where I was getting those like Jurassic Park vibes, where there's like dinosaurs in the cages and you're not treating them really well. And it's like, just wait till they get out.
As the cage opens,
and
you're gonna get yours. Karma's gonna come for you,
exactly,
in the form of a T-Rex.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, there's even like a certain point where like I don't know what they're called, but they break out. I was like, oh, those are just straight up dinosaurs. Like,
yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a sequence. Yeah, so when they break out and they get trampled,
yeah, it's like a herd of them. Yeah,
there's a sequence just like that in, I don't remember what the dinosaurs are called in Jurassic Park, but I think that's a direct allusion to that. And then when Man gets killed, I think it's also an allusion to Jurassic
Yeah,
Park and the
100%.
raptors.
Yeah,
So,
I think so. I was like, oh, I really like this whole sequence that comes
Yeah,
up.
it's fun.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I love a good like chaos scene, but
Mhm.
that like works out well, obviously for
you have to
our-
capture
for the good
the
guys.
chaos and
Yeah,
kind of bottle it for your own
yeah,
purposes. I mean, what's fun about this sequence is we've been going about it Omega's way
yes,
this whole time.
yeah,
And again, so it's called a different approach,
Mhm.
right? So now it's her opportunity to go about it Crosshair's way,
yes, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so they get to learn from each other
Yeah.
a little bit.
Because man basically sets up this trap for them,
Yeah,
right? Like he's
exactly.
like, oh, I knew you were gonna come for your hound, so
He didn't know about the other stuff yet, but he
Mhm.
had a hunch, and his
Yeah.
hunch was right. I mean, the thing is, Man is an example of an Imperial officer we see a lot, which is not an idiot. They have
yes.
a basic sense of. We see a lot of idiot Imperials.
We do,
But-
and it's nice to see one that actually has like he's a quality one, an intelligent
Yeah.
one. It's one that's actually kind of more dangerous in the fact that they're in tune with things, right?
They know how to use their brain,
Yeah,
and they know how to think outside of the
Mhm.
strict system that is imposed by the
Yeah.
Imperial.
it makes a much better villain because it's like, okay, this kid, whatever, and her dad shows up. There's a crash
Right,
shuttle.
it's,
He's
like,
like,
suspicious.
all right.
Yeah.
Someone's probably looking for you if you're needing money this
Right.
bad, and he's like, so I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna see maybe where you came from, see if I can find out what's going on here, and he finds out immediately.
Right, but ultimately, the best type of Imperial like that, they're always hoisted by their own petard.
Yes.
So in this case, that's the animals that he's being imprisoned,
Mhm.
right? So we get to this facility, and Omega approaches from the outside of the compound. She looks like she's going to sneak in, but Crosshair arrives and reluctantly agrees to go along with the plan, despite the fact that he says, "My skills are being wasted." And
yeah.
she's like, "Noted."
I don't know, man. You got shaky hands these days.
Yeah, you missed that
so-
commando, and you weren't even that far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, do you even have skills anymore? Other than just
mean,
being cool with killing
Did
everyone?
he even hit the sniper? I think there's that guy in the tower. I think he just puts shots towards him, but I don't
Yeah.
think he takes him out.
I don't know.
He gets taken out later when the ship leaves, and it. You didn't
Right.
catch this?
He's like,
It like
yeah.
what? He goes,
Yeah, he's
it's
like,
I didn't
wow.
catch it
Yeah.
the first time. But the second time, it's
Yeah.
so funny. It looks so cool, like the way that it shoots. It's like it's a close up, and you see the air going around his face,
Oh, yeah.
and then it goes to the wide shot, and it goes, and they take off, and he's
Mhm.
what?
Yeah.
It's like just off screen. It's so
Yeah.
funny. That's a classic Star Wars moment. right there.
Yeah. Just a little goofy.
Yeah. So, anyway, they're sneaking through this facility. Crosshair's armed with a blaster. He's kind of, her backup. They spot Batcher really quickly. It's being controlled. All the cages are being controlled by this central command console, and unfortunately, as you said, it is a trap.
Mm-hmm.
And Man appears, having expected them. Says Lau has a strict pet policy, which is
Yeah.
a fun line,
Pet
and
policy, yeah.
and that he quote unquote runs this town,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which obviously you don't need to tell this; it's obvious.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah. So he reveals that he's already pieced together that the crash shuttle must have been them, and has been in contact with Dr. Hemlock, who was already on their way. Right. Omega, reluctantly, seeing that she's kind of surrounded, and her gambit is kind of run out
Mhm.
here, throws over the credits, and then gives Crosshair the go-ahead to kind of do things his way,
Yeah.
right? And so right away they jump into action, and they go for the console, they open the cages, and that's when chaos is created. There's
Yeah.
animals everywhere. Batcher finds them very quickly. There's the stampede we talked about already. But in the chaos, they make a quick plan. Omega and Batcher head to steal the cargo ship, while Crosshair, quote unquote, handles
Yeah, it's
everything
just
else.
shooting everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think he takes out a few Imperials.
He
but,
does,
the
yeah.
animals take out a lot,
Yeah.
and then he's not even the one who takes out Man, because
No.
Man, in the chaos again, gets I don't know how to say it, a crate holding what looks to be or seems to be a Raptar, which is the tentacle creatures from A Force Awakens,
Right. Yeah.
is opened behind him, and then the tentacles emerge, pulling him into the darkness. I like how it closes behind him and then
Yeah.
locks,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And all we hear is his screams,
Mm-hmm.
right? As again, he's hoisted by his own
It's a
petard.
it's a really good bad guy death. I don't know.
Yeah,
I like
that's
it.
like the most
I like it.
satisfying.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah. I just love.
Right.
There's always so many just good funny ones, not good funny ones, but you know what I mean, in the stampede, you just see a lot of these clone troopers just getting trampled and whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's what you get for shocking things with sticks inside crates and being bad guys.
Yeah, so. My favorite is the guy who goes flying though.
Yeah, yeah. It's like they're stealing the cargo ship. It's like,
no duh.
Yeah,
too late. Anyway, Crosshair is able to make a break for the ship. They take off, and in the process, I guess I mentioned that TK trooper is thrown over out of the watchtower.
Yeah.
We cut to a quick sequence of some time afterwards. We're not sure how much. Hemlock and his team are investigating the crash shuttle that Crosshair and Omega used to get to Lao. The clone commando, Captain Scorch, who we've been following this whole season, and actually since last season, who is from the Delta Squadron, from the Republic Commando video game, and we saw in the Clone Wars and stuff. But seems to be like very much like on board with the whole Imperial thing. I'm not sure. We don't know what the story with the Commandos is. Why they're more willing to go along with these things versus some of the other clones. It's unclear. And they may never have time to reveal that stuff. But it feels like such a tease to have Scorch, a character that people like, being here. And still not like, and never get to know anything about them.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I know.
He's been in like every episode.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of see him as more of a, like, in that Crosshair realm, when Crosshair was like originally like pretty like
sure. He's just like he has his allegiance to the Empire.
Yeah, and he's just like, okay, like his chip just worked better, and he's just like, yeah, this is who I work for now. But yeah, it is interesting though, because there are so many clones that have defected. And now this guy's just kind of still hanging out. So
yeah, and like the other thing that's important to note, his uniform, his armor, still has colored paint on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's like not a really like even Cody's armor was painted gray.
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah.
So like you almost get the impression that this is not a chip thing. That's like it's just like this is what he knows and he just follows orders kind of situation.
I mean, we have seen those clones that are just way more, I don't know, a little more bloodthirsty, I would say, a little more, a little.
I mean, like, but you gotta think, like,
aggressive.
He murders a bunch of citizens. Remember last season when he just goes and like kills a bunch of innocent like townsfolk.
It's really bad.
So yeah, not great for him.
That's what I mean, though. It's just kind of, it's like when you get, I don't know, it's probably a bad thing, but you know when you get like people who are cops that shouldn't be cops because they're way more like they're just or security guards, and like they take their job a bit too seriously, and you're like, okay, like the police wouldn't take you, so now you're just like this excessively aggressive mall cop, like that kind of thing.
Right. Finally, I get to break someone's arm.
Yeah. I mean,
like, I don't know,
bouncers at clubs.
Exactly.
You're like, whoa, you gotta tone it down. Your job's not that serious.
They've got a authority problem.
Yeah.
They have a.
That's like Scorch. He takes his job a bit too serious. Yeah.
They love violence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's just a bad guy.
Yeah, now he is. It's sad. Anyway, they reveal that to Dr. Hemlock that Omega and Crosshair were at the spaceport. They confirm that. But it's past tense. Obviously, that's important because they've obviously escaped. He continues by letting him know that they left on a cargo freighter, which they are planning on tracking. Right? Yeah,
you'd think that you could, like, especially cargo freighters, you'd think would have tracking.
Well, they said that they did. And even Crosshair says that they can track this ship. So
right, yeah.
You know, that's the very next line. It's like, they can track the ship. We need to ditch it.
Yeah.
Right?
And well, obviously they're going to because they're meeting up with.
Right.
Yeah, the batch, and they're just going to ditch that ship and take off. So.
Right. Crosshair knows that the Empire will track the ship, so we're in space now with them in the cargo ship. They need to ditch it. Omega is way ahead of him. I'm not sure what she was doing up until that moment because she's already sent a coded message to Hunter to rendezvous. And Crosshair, he's not ready to believe that they'll be there to meet them.
Right. It's been months. They could be dead.
Everything could be. It's like you gotta let's come up with a different plan or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I mean that's fair because he's like, okay, well, what if they can't meet us right away? Like we don't have time.
Yes.
Like, he's a little. What's the word? Pessimistic, I'd say, which is right for his character.
Yeah, and also earned, right? Like he has no reason to. Like the thing is, they could have built the tension more by having them land first and then the Marauder arriving.
Yeah, like waiting.
We're waiting. Like we don't have time to wait for this. Like we need to go.
Yeah.
And then you could have even done even more. Like they leave and then the Marauder arrives just right after they leave.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's like, oh, we didn't have like that kind of thing.
It's true.
But they didn't do that.
No.
Instead, what we get is some beautiful space imagery. Lots of like big glowy moons and a gas giant. Pardon. And we slowly reveal that the Marauder is indeed there waiting for them. And Wrecker's there to greet her first. They land. She runs out of the like.
Good reunion.
Yeah, it's a beautiful reunion.
It is. It's very sweet. I always love. I especially love Omega and Wrecker's like relationship with each other because it's just that big like big brother little sister kind of feel to it. So it's obvious that those two, I think they have stronger like loving emotions. Yeah, so they're just gonna run to each other and then of course the two like others are hanging back. Like obviously Crosshair's hanging back, and then Hunter's hanging back too.
He's got to play it cool. So again,
he's got to play it cool. Yeah,
the lighting here is really nice. So
you
have
is.
the glowy light coming out of the ships, and then it's casting a light in between the two of them. Omega is first to come out. We see Wrecker arrive, and then there's like a quick, beautiful reunion.
Yeah.
Talk about how we crossed the galaxy 4 times looking for you, and then that's when Hunter arrives, saying it's been 5 actually, but you were the one who found us, and it's really nice. Like that moment, like the music swells. We get to hear Omega's theme in a beautiful rendition. He's like on one knee. It's like a classic like father-daughter moment here. It feels like that's what they're going for.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think we know that's kind of the archetype that they've kind of built up for their relationship, as you mentioned, like it's kind of like brother sister stuff.
Yeah,
and they're all brothers and sisters technically, but like it's kind of this like adopted father figure type thing. And it's very sad. I certainly cried. There's been a lot of sad stuff. I was already primed for it though because I'd watched the Daily Show had put out a clip where Jon Stewart was talking about the dog that they had at the office had to be put down because he was old.
Yeah.
And he was like, they were just like talking. Oh my God, it was the
Poor
saddest
guy.
thing. I was just bawling my eyes out.
It's very sad.
So then I watched this episode and I'm like, oh, this is fun. And then I get to this like, oh no, not again. And so as I said off the top, I thought it was an effective reunion.
Yeah, it was good.
Did you have any thoughts on this moment?
No, I loved it. That they've been working so hard, and it was nice that they gave us that little bit of, because they didn't know exactly where she was in this part of the galaxy, right? So it was kind of nice to see that they've been, I don't know, making loops, like you would say, like checking out all these different places around this galaxy, trying to find her. So it was nice to see how hard they've been working and to let her know that. And yeah, it was just a beautiful little, reunion that they weren't necessarily sure that they were going to get.
Yeah, so. And it's like, it would have been interesting. They talk about it here briefly, but it's like they didn't believe it at first.
Yeah,
But that they were going to check it out anyway. Like,
of course,
there's nothing that
they're like,
it
well,
could have been a trap, but like
it was worth it. Yeah. Oh, so sweet. Yeah.
So beautiful reunion moment. Music swells, and then they're like, yeah, but like, how did you escape?
Mm-hmm.
She says, I had help, which I had guessed that was going to be the line.
Yeah, I was guessing that too. I was like, oh, I had help, for sure.
Yeah. And then cue Crosshair emerging from the cargo ship, standing far away.
Yeah.
And no one says anything. There's no more lines of dialogue here. But you can see that the look on Hunter and Wrecker's face, how would you frame it? Like, how would you say that their faces made them look?
I don't know what the word is. Like, Wrecker especially looks like kind of angry still.
Right, like
I feel like
this bastard,
like hurt and kind of hurt and angry, and just like this guy. Like we haven't forgiven you yet. Is very much the look I'm getting from them. And I'm sure we're gonna get there. There's gonna be obviously conversations in this next episode coming up about and I'm sure it's gonna be Omega in the middle being like, no, he's our brother.
Well,
he's coming with us.
That.
Yeah.
Right?
That there's still good in him, because I would almost bet in the next episode we're going to see Wrecker be like, well, okay, cool. Thanks for the help. We're leaving you here.
Yeah, like, I don't know if they'll go about it that way, but I think that the next episode is going to be all about that reconciliation.
and it's like if they can forgive each other or not.
Right, like I don't need any action next week.
No.
We can go with just dealing with the fallout of the reunion would be fine with me. Maybe we set up or tease, Echo and Rex's return.
I feel like we could see them next because, they mentioned in one of the previous episodes that they were going to be able to meet up with Wrecker and Hunter in 2 rotations.
Sure.
So that time is definitely elapsed by now. So yeah, I do think that timeline-wise, we could end up seeing them.
It's hard
next
to say
episode,
because
and
we don't know when exactly their mission for episode 2 takes place in context with everything that happened before.
Right.
We don't know. It could have been early on. It could have been months in. It could have been from the exact happening at that exact moment.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, we don't know.
Yeah.
But I would say that you're right that probably they'll. I think they want to bring them in.
I think it would just make sense. And like I said earlier, that their kind of mission does sort of align with like Omega wanting to go back to Tantus or whatever Wayland. So I do think her having that information is beneficial for what Rex and Echo are wanting to be doing right now too. So it does seem to all fit. And then I guess we'll maybe see how this reunion is going to play out with the boys.
I'm so fascinated. I think that's what's so interesting. Like, we've now set up this really kind of complex dynamic where, he burned the bridges, Crosshair did, had an opportunity to join them last season, or was it, again, maybe the end of season 1, and, denied that. Right. And now, so how do you reconcile with somebody that not only put your lives in danger, but in that process, because they didn't have his help, someone like Tech died. So,
exactly.
Like, how do you you could easily see a emotionally immature someone like Wrecker who would blame him for that.
Oh, 100%.
And see how those. I mean, again, I just think that's so fascinating. I really hope they don't mishandle it. I think.
Yeah, I don't think they will.
You need to take the time and do the dialogue, and just like, even if it's just like a chatty episode, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's more than fine. So. We'll see.
And so they cut to black. We get no resolution there. We're going to find out next week.
Do we get more than one episode next week?
Let's double check. Let's find out what next week's episode is even called. So they're doing multi-episode drops. Next week's episode is called... should I go to the 3rd season? Next week's episode is called The Return, which... that makes sense, I guess. But maybe it means more than the return of the full Bad Batch together.
Yeah.
But no, we just get one. It's just the one episode.
Okay. Well, I mean, they could return to Tansis. They could have the return of Rex and Echo. I don't know what BC.
Episode 6 and 7, which is not this coming week, but the week after.
Oh, it's a double drop.
We do get 2 episodes, Infiltration and Extraction.
Oh,
so that might be back to
that's true.
To Wayland. It's hard to say. Although, is there anything else that hints at? No, there's nothing else that hints at anything else. So likely that's the case. That she's gonna have to sell them on. We have to go save Nala Se and everything else, and destroy that Imperial facility or whatever. I mean, I guess we know from the timeline of Star Wars that this Project Necromancer and all these other things that they're doing aren't successful this early.
No.
In fact, they're not successful for like another 20 years.
Right.
So, something has to happen. We already know that, from Palpatine's perspective, there's nothing more important than the security of that facility.
Right.
Right. So it would be a massive setback for the Empire to have that facility destroyed, which I think we'll probably see in this season.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
It would, you're right. It would be cool, especially if they release some of the beasts into the facility. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts?
Fun stuff. No, I think overall, like, I really enjoyed this episode. I guess some people didn't on the internet, but I liked it. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it had a good mix of everything. Like I said, I love the little Jurassic Park kind of feel to it, and it did have some fun. Moments with some kind of not new characters, but like some Imperials, and we're seeing some different worlds. And then just that overall corruption, and I like an episode like this. It feels very well rounded, and it had good movement from start to finish. Yeah. So
I liked it. Yeah. Fortunately, so that we read that 5.5 or 5-star.
Yeah, I can't see this one being like the weakest episode in the series.
Yeah,
I can't.
It's getting an 8 out of 10. That's the average.
Oh, okay. IMDb. Yeah. So,
which is still actually higher than episode 2, which has a 7.4,
and higher than episode 1.
Oh yeah, which is I don't know about that. But,
yeah, barely higher.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't say. I just maybe that's I've just seen a few people annoyed about that, and that one stood out. It was the featured review, so I read it. I don't know. What do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any other final thoughts. I liked the episode. I thought it was fun. More time with Crosshair and Omega together is a good dynamic.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what happens next week as this return happens. But until then, and which again I think next week should be regular schedule. So we'll be back next week with season 3, episode 5, The Return. And until then, may the force be with you.